this computer. Okay. All right.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Heart. And we want to say hi to everybody out there and everybody on YouTube. I want you to know we kind of changed it up a little bit. We were mainly focusing on, Jehovah's Witnesses and, the healing process and, all the different things associated with coming out of a cult. But now we've kind of varied the show a bit. And now we're talking about worldwide Church of God so that you can have comparisons to compare worldwide with Jehovah's Witnesses and basically see that they're the same structure, the same, really a lot of the same literature and the same thing. So today we wanted to talk about, or Angela wanted to talk about, she really had it on her heart, this talk about denial and about acceptance. And anyway, so this is part of the healing process. I don't know if a lot of you know about denial. You usually hear about denial in the 12 steps. Usually an alcoholic will be in denial that he's an alcoholic. And until he comes out of denial, he usually don't enter the healing process. And so Angela wants to talk about denial in relationship to religion, to cultic religion anyway. And she wants to share about that tonight. Yeah. So welcome, everybody.
Yes, welcome everyone. Again, Dan and Angela, that's our, you can see it on the screen there. But anyway, the thing about denial is that it is one of it's the first stage of the grieving process. And interestingly, when we come out of some crazy thing like what we've all been through, whether you're coming from a place of having left the, Mormonism, it doesn't matter, Amish, the Worldwide Church of God, Jehovah's Witnesses, you name it, Seventh-day Adventism, wherever you've come from, Catholicism, some people are it's a lot the same. It's kind of amazing. But when you leave, a lot of us are ousted. We're not allowed to be a part of our families anymore, or they can't be a part of our lives. And we kind of hit an unexpected, we're not expecting that to happen, put it that way. And a lot of times in the beginning, especially in the beginning, we're in very much denial. But it goes deeper than that, because it's not just denial about what's happening where you're losing your family, but it's denial about that you're having to give up the belief systems that you've always believed that tend to need to go along with that for you to really be free. Because we want freedom, right? We want to find happiness and we want to find peace once again in our lives. But here we're hit with the families rejecting us. And then once we kind of settle into that, then we start to have to sort out, not throwing the baby out the bathwater is what I always say. Dan believes that too. Trying to just sort. And it's not an easy process. It's a painful one. But at the same time, you're dealing with having to make new friendships, learning how to function in society. So there's a lot of wanting to just go into a denial mode where, you don't want to go into the computer and research why it is that really truly that you left the religion that you've chosen to leave, because you've always known that. It's always been a part of you. It's down in the depth of you. And you don't really want to know, to be honest with you. But unfortunately, that's like not accepting where you're at, like what is, and what is the situation, and what is the truth. We just tend to just kind of bumble along in our lives and groan and moan and complain and tell our stories a million times over, and we don't really get really well, which is really sad. Because like in an alcoholic situation of someone who's an alcoholic or a drug addict or a foodaholic or a codependent, all these things are addictions. Codependency is addiction to controlling people, situations, because you want to feel safe, you want to feel good, just like people who have overeating or don't eat enough, they control what they can, which is the one thing they can, which is their eating. So it's another form of control. We do these things because we're suffering, we're trying to feel better. That's why we do all these things that we call addictions. But this denial thing is a problem. And what I'm seeing is that across the board, people are more than what they want to do is tell their story a million times over of what has happened to me, who did what to me, and why it's so horrible. And they don't want to really go beyond that. For the most part, is what I've seen across the board. And Dan and I know a lot of people in a lot of different religions who have left, and it's the same problem across the board. So
I just want to say too, it's funny when I look at the witnesses right now, when I look back at Jehovah's Witnesses, and I think of all of those false prophecies, predictions, whatever you want to call them, and the people are still following. And it's the weirdest thing, because if you were thinking about what happened, you would think, well, in 77, 75, the prediction was really heavy on that the world was going to end 6,000 years from the world's beginning. Then we went through the generation prophecy, 70 or 80 years from 1914, it was going to end. Well, that was like the last straw for me, the generation prophecy. And I came out of denial. I came out of something's wrong. Did we just pass a prophecy? And anyway, they put me on apostate watch, and that was the end. I sent in my letter and I left. But it's so interesting because I look at Angela's family, and they've had similar things in the worldwide. They've had false prophecies. They've been told the end's going to come, to live for the end. Revelations, the same thing. They've had the same books, Revelation book.
Plain Truth Magazine, the World Tomorrow radio broadcast, and then TV broadcast.
Yeah. And so somehow they've denied the reality that they've been lied to, and they continue to follow. Somehow they tuck away what's happened, the dates and whatever, and they smile like that's never happened. Yet, for whatever reason, their life never really takes off. They're kind of in their head. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like a fragged computer that needs defragging. It needs cleaning, and until you defrag it, until you say, damn it, I was lied to. Hey, you guys lied to me. What happened here? What happened with this prophecy, this prediction? But they don't do it. And I'll tell you, I've literally watched Angela's family really deteriorate really, really bad, in just hopelessness, emptiness. You look in their face,
fear.
They don't even have a reason to live.
Yeah.
And I'm going, shit, and I'm like, and you tell them nothing, because they're so prideful. They're so
Hey, Debbie, your mic is on. Do you think you could mute it just for a minute until and when you want to speak, just go ahead and unmute. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So anyway, I think denial, until we're ready to face the fact, like you have all this information on Herbert W. Armstrong, that if anybody really looked into the man, you would never base your life on that religion or anything he said. He was so far out, so far gone, so immoral, so you'd be like, no, I'm done. And yet these people go on and they're like in a trance. But anyway, go ahead, Angela.
So the other thing about the grieving process. So we have to go through, as everybody knows here, we have to go through the grieving process. We just do. So the first stage is always denial. And like I said, unfortunately, we stay in it. Sometimes I've noticed in these cults, we stay in it too long, way too long. Many times I'm seeing it's years. So then we go into the anger phase. So it's kind of weird, but with all of us, we're sort of in the denial phase in the beginning, and then we start getting angry. And so then we have a mixed mesh of denial and anger is what I'm seeing. Instead of that, we're moving from denial into anger. Well, they say that you go back and forth for a while, but we're definitely going back and forth and never moving on into well, they say you go into bargaining, okay, but I don't think any of us are really doing much of bargaining with God. If you'll just this and that, I'll stop doing this and that, just give me back my family, or whatever. I suppose some of us do, absolutely, but not so much. But then we go into a depression mode, and the reason why that is because what we were hoping we could turn around, like maybe you've tried everything you can to get your family to see the truth or to love a man, whatever you knew it to do. You've tried that, maybe you've done your bargaining with God or with others, and it hasn't worked. And then you get into the anger, into the depression mode, because you don't know what to do and you just feel lost. That's all normal. So in no way do we mean to cut any of this down. It's just that what we've noticed is that people are absolutely stuck in the denial, anger, depression mode combined in the way that the cults, people who've come out of cults, they stay stuck in all of those together. As all those three. I'm not going to throw the bargaining one in so much. I just feel like we stay stuck in the depression. It's a known fact that Jehovah's Witnesses have the highest rate of mental illness in all religions. And I am sure the Worldwide Church of God cannot be far behind. It's interesting, but it's just such a heavy duty mind control. And then when you get out of there, trying to get unstuck and unhooked, it is a little piece of work. And it does take some help. absolutely does take some help. I really do believe. I do not know, but now I know, thank God, I know one worldwider who has got some semblance of mind to her, and she can talk and not feel guilty about the things that have gone on and why she's left. But I'm going to tell you what, in all my years, and I've been out how many long years? Let's see now, since I was 20, oh, 23, I guess I was about 23. And so I was growing up in my church. And so since then, I've only met one, guys, one that has any sense of ability to speak against the
I'm sure there's
worldwide.
more, but
Well, I don't know them.
well,
But
right.
I'm not saying there aren't, but I don't know them. And that's hard for me. My mom got out, and then she is now back in the United Church of God. And shocking to me that she ran back. But the main one that we're seeing that is also hooking people really strongly. Of course, everybody knows this, but it's the fear that's involved that they use as a tactic. So, I just feel like that I've got so many things I wanted to tell the worldwiders. What I've done this research about the worldwide, and I don't know that I don't even like going into, since I don't even have
That's okay.
worldwiders on here right now.
That's all right. We could talk a little bit about it because with the Jehovah's Witnesses, because when I saw my family, how long ago was it when I saw my brother Doug?
I don't
How
know,
many years?
4,
Four
5,
four
5
years
years,
ago, and I saw all my brothers,
5
and
years.
I saw my brother Phil, and he was in a home where they care for him. I saw my brother Paul. I saw my brother Doug. Doug didn't want to see me. Doug was a presiding overseer, and I begged him to come see me. I literally begged him, and I said, Doug, please, man, come see me. I'm not. I'm going to come coming through Missouri. Please, come see me. And finally, after an hour or so, he came. And I'm going to tell you guys that I'm not exaggerating. He was like a vegetable. He was a presiding overseer, and he looked like a vegetable. He wouldn't look at me. He stared down. And I thought, what's wrong with him? And I kept saying, Doug, look at me, look at me, look at me. And finally, he looked at me, and all he told me about was his houses he had. I got 4 houses. I've got 22 cars. I've got this. I've got that. And he wouldn't make eye contact with me, no matter what I did. Remember that?
Yeah, I do, Dan.
And I saw my other brother, and he says, Jehovah's going to kill you. Jehovah's going to kill you. And you know what it looked like, guys? It looked like a bomb went off, and their eardrums were blown. And there was just somebody there talking to me, making no sense at all, no conversation. And that's when I went on a rampage, really 4 years ago, and came back because I got on with my life. I got the hell out of there. I never looked back. I built my life back. I got educated in a lot of different things, spirituality, lots of things. But when I saw my brother, when I saw how jacked up he was and how mentally ill was, and how he was, my younger brother was just wishing I was dead, saying I'm going to be dead. That's all he could say. You're going to die. You're going to die. You're going to die. And I'm thinking, whoa, and anyway, it's so weird. And actually I had a discussion a couple of years before with my mother died, and my uncle showed up. He's Mr. Bethelite. All his kids were Bethelites, and they got us in a little hotel room. Angela was there, and he pulled out the gray Bible, the silver sword, whatever they call it. I call it ugly. I don't think you should make Bibles gray, like a locker room cabinets. Anyway, they read to me the same junk, God's name, Jehovah. Where else are you going to hear that? We don't believe in a Trinity. We don't. And I went, what about the prophecies, guys? They haven't changed. He goes, there's no prophecy change. My uncle, his kids are Bethelites. They built kingdom halls all over. They're in all these committees. He was in total denial. He looked at me and I said, what do you mean? Do you mean 75 wasn't the problem? Nope. It's an extension. The generation prophecy, just an extension. It's basically the same thing. And the overlapping generation, same. And there was no talking to them. There was no talking to them. There was some kind of, I'm not going to call it a curse, but there was a blinder. There was a non-ability to see reality. And we know where it came from. It came from programming. It came from don't listen to anybody out there. They're all bad. They're all part of Satan's. But it was freaky. It was so freaky to look at it. Honest to God, guys, it looked like a war zone. My family looked like a war zone of mental illness. And my brother's leading a kingdom hall, presiding overseer, and he's like a vegetable. can't even look his brother in the eye, can't even reason with his brother, mumbles the same stuff that I mumbled years ago. And I just went, oh my God, how can I help these people? How can I help them? And, I guess they see when they want to see. I guess when they get tired of getting lied to so much. I don't know what it takes. It didn't take much for me. I was born into it, but actually was baptized in the 70s, and I was out by the late 80s after the generation prophecy, after I questioned the brothers. But it boggles my mind to go back and see that I don't know if they're using religion as a crutch. I don't know if that's what it is. They can't get through life without governing body being dad. I don't know what it is. But the fact of the matter is, they've been lied to, lied again to, and lied again to. And so has the worldwiders. It's the same thing. And I got to tell you, Angela's family, her mother will listen to this. I don't care. But their family looks very similar to my family. Identical. Empty, no future, pissed off, end didn't come, end's not coming in their mind. I mean, they say it is, but it isn't. But they live in the same reality. It's weird to see two religions side by side. They each have the Revelation book. They each have the good news today. They each have,
Yeah. Well, you guys, the thing is what we're trying to bring to the table is something that's fresh and new and is helpful. And I guess I just want to say this, I really do believe it's kind of interesting, but I feel like the big world religions that are in the US, the ones that seeing that we all kind of consider to be cults today, all started around, I feel like it's around the same ish time. You know what I mean? Interesting to me. Seventh-day Adventism, Church of God Seventh Day, all the Millerite movement thing. And then we had the Worldwide Church of God that spawned off from a combination of Jehovah's Witnesses and Seventh-day Adventism. And we had Scientology. I'm not sure when that started, but it was somewhere, earlier 1900s, right? By what was that guy's name that started that one? We had the Christian Science. And we had the Mary Baker Eddy, which was that was Seventh-day Adventist. No, that was the Christian Science. Anyway, all these all started consuming all of us with their different twists on like Seventh-day Adventists and all these different ones that are in that same realm, Worldwide Church of God. They kind of all spawned and spun off of each other. The Jehovah's Witnesses, Worldwide kind of spun off that. And everybody, they were just kind of all tied in with each other. If you read back in history, they improved upon each other's thing. All really what it seemed like when I study all of it is that it was all about the almighty buck, and it was about power. And the presses started to be used by Herbert W. Armstrong. He was into the news, advertising, that kind of thing. Then he found radio. He was invited onto a spot, and then he kept getting kicked out of these churches because he was kind of out there and Seventh-day Adventism type of realm of belief systems, Sabbath keeping, and all of that. His wife is the one who kind of got him into that. But always interesting. Always there's this sexual deviations. I just want to put it that way. I like to put it that way because it's the most nice way I can say it. That will be in all of these cults, and it's hard. You don't notice them right away. That's kind of the problem. But I want to say right up front that love is the most important thing that we want to look for. When you have all these other things going on, we need to see it from here on out. If we're not already looking at it this way, that if you're not seeing the fruits. And that sometimes, unfortunately, takes time, but to do our level best to research out somebody, find out the history of the person, make sure that you know all of that, to know, if you can, that they got kicked out of this church and that church because they were a rebel and that they this, that, you need to know all of those things before you start following somebody as your leader, because Herbert W. Armstrong was absolutely self-appointed. I mean, he had a guy call him the apostle of God. Okay. But he prophesied, he gave dates. He actually was a man that was so disturbed, terribly disturbed. So I've got all kinds of written stuff everywhere. It's repeated. Oh, hey, Debbie, are you wanting to say something? Or is that just, no?
Yeah.
Yay.
Is there any way you can turn up your volume?
Okay, we can try and do that. Thank you.
It's all the way up.
Yeah, ours is all the way up.
Do you have a volume on yours? You might be able to turn yours up too. Ours is.
I've got mine turned up I'm just having a hard time hearing.
How about you, Carrie K? How's the sound on your end? Carrie K, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, it's fine on my end.
Okay,
No problem.
right. I don't know what to offer or what to say to help, but so the love thing is really important, and the researching out of these leaders to know what you're getting into before you get into. How come we all didn't? Well, some of us were born in, but when we start to see, if anybody's watching now, and they can say this, the Worldwide Church of God put out magazines that had to do with child rearing that were very, very not normal. It was very militant in a lot of ways. It didn't have the element of love. The guy who wrote it, Garner Ted Armstrong, which is Herbert W. Armstrong's son, who started the television broadcast The World Tomorrow, he didn't even have children. He never had children. And yet he wrote the book on the child rearing, which was for the church. Everybody says, everybody who was taught to raise their children based on that book, they have all kinds of mental issues, emotional issues, detachment issues, bonding issues, all kinds of issues because of having those people having obeyed those unnatural, unnormal, unconventional ways of being. And the people in the church who didn't follow it, their children are the ones who are way more adjusted, don't have all those problems. But
Yeah, some of the things were like, leave your kid in there until he's broken. Yeah,
in the crib,
don't go in there until he breaks.
Yeah, so
It was almost like the kid against you.
yeah.
It's like this baby against you. No matter how he cries, he has to be broken. He has to be
Yeah,
obeyed.
they
He has to
definitely.
learn obedience.
Yep. And so if the child, you pick them, they're crying, and you pick them up and they're still crying, you put them back down, and leave them there for hours like that. Just you breastfeed them, and then you don't spend a lot of time. They just had all these crazy things, just like JWs do about their children. It was the same identical kind of
It
a
reminded
thing.
me of what Stephen Lett said about babies are an enemy of Jehovah
Yes.
until till we learn really what they are. It's so funny because it's the exact opposite of what they said about the birthdays. It's
Yeah.
better afterward. Yeah, you know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying?
But why would we follow somebody who'd never had children and wrote a book on child rearing? And then the thing is that he was in the Navy, and when he was in there, everybody, when he got out, everybody knew that he was like completely a womanizer. And it's all over the internet. You can research it. It's not like I'm saying anything new, but it ended up that his father had been molesting his daughter since she was 10, for 10 years, while he was doing all these broadcasts on the TV. And matter of fact, it's all also in the internet. You can read it on your own. I'll tell you all the different places when I'm towards the end here that you can get all this information. But just that he literally found out from his daughter when she came home from some date that she was allowed to go on, which was surprising, that she had been raped. So she tells her dad, I've been raped. And then her dad says, instead of the normal reaction, oh my God, let's go to the police and let's fill out a report. No, instead he goes, oh, good. Now I'm going to show you what sex is really about. And so then for the next 10 years, he raped her and, treated her like crap. And then there was also the report about him going to a hotel early on and strapping her down and then raping her, and she's screaming, saying no, no, no. And then the porter guy comes and says, what's going on? Why is all this noise? He goes, oh, it's a new wife, not, kind of not knowing about all these, having to have sex and all that. And the guy's like, oh, okay. That's a long time ago, back in late 1960s, but it sounded like the wife was resistant to being made love to. Okay. But it was his daughter. And so the son later on confronts his dad, and of course both of them admit to all their crazy amounts of sexual crapola. It's unbelievable. It goes on, and the son always getting reprimanded and getting told that he was disfellowshipped, and then he's reinstated. Then it happens again a million times over. All the ministers wanting to leave, they get caught in trouble for the same thing, but then they're disfellowshipped, but then the son is always invited back, and because he's a speaker in the church and makes the money. And if ever something didn't suit their needs, like for example, we couldn't go to the doctors, kind of like lots of churches can't go to the doctors. But then as soon as it doesn't fit his situation, yeah, people died, just like you guys. They died for not being able to go to the doctor. Like, I'll tell you one story. A woman, she had her mother who was got cancer. They lived kind of on the outskirts of the main area where church was held. So they didn't really tell the pastors about that they were going to the doctors and they were being helped and they were going to get it licked, and it was going pretty good. Well, then a new church was added in their area, so they started going and they said, "Oh no, you have to have faith in God and faith in God alone." And so the woman's like, or you'll lose your salvation and you'll be in the lake of fire. And so the lady's like, oh God, I'm not going to go to the doctor anymore. So that was the end of that. And the next time that she got really bad, and then she found out that you're far advanced and you're going to die. It's terminal. So she did get really, really sick, and her daughter was like, "Oh mom, let's call the doctor and at least get you some comfort," because she was in terrible, terrible pain near the end. So the doctors came and gave her some morphine, and she got, her eyes just got really, really big. I don't think she was talking. And she just looked at her daughter like, "Oh my God, you have just put me in the lake of fire. You've just done, the most horrible thing you could do to me." Her eyes were like bugged out, like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I'm going to be in the lake of fire when I wake up." And so she died. And her daughter, would you believe it, stayed in the church.
Mm.
And for many, many years, she finally wrote about it. It's now on the internet. But, it's like, why do we do this? Because then later on, when Herbert W. Armstrong got, not only did he get divorced, which he spoke so heavily against, broke up families, because if you've been divorced and then you remarry, that's not okay with God's laws. And so you have to divorce your current husband because you just committed adultery because you were already pre-married, and you can't do that according to the Bible. And so he broke up family after family. I was in that church, the main one in Pasadena, California, where these guys lived. And it was true that that's what they did. They broke up so many families. But yet he got divorced. He divorced his second wife. When he was on his death, on his process of dying, he went to the doctors. And every time anything would not suit his needs or the needs of his life, he would change the rules about going to the doctors. He changed it in the 70s. About divorce, you name it, whatever suited his, what he was doing, what he was needing to do, he would change the rules. You guys, why do we tolerate this stuff? I mean, why do we think that we need to have some man who does the same kind of shenanigans as any other man? Why do we think that this would be okay for them to lead me? And when we see these things going on, we don't stand up to it strongly. We don't. Even the ministers in there, countless of the higher echelon in this very large worldwide church, would not. I don't know. First of all, Ted Armstrong, the son, was very good actor. He would come up with excuses and why he was, doing this and that. He actually was reported to have raped a woman, cheated on his wife a million times over, says that he had at least 200 women, including ministers as wives, the campus college girls, the secretaries, the women he met on the airplanes.
About as many as King Solomon.
Oh God, yeah. He just was, they call him the prodigal, profligate, profligate. Anyway, but why is it that, do you think that knowing all this and knowing it while you're working there at the college? My dad worked on the presses, doing the magazines and the booklets and all that stuff that we put out free of charge, and always changing the rules. You can wear makeup, you can't wear makeup, you have dress have to be down to here, and you get put out of church for all these kinds of things, for for going to the doctor. You just make it up as you go and change it as you go. You can wear makeup, you can't. You can wear jewelry, you can't. On and on, just never ending. And but why do you think that we allow our lives to become so full of fear? Because what is it we're really addicted to in here? So, just like in the denial, an alcoholic has to come to a certain place in their life when he says, or a codependent or overeaters person, they've got to come to this point where they say, you know what, this is messed up and I have come to the end of myself. I can't fix it. I can't seem to overcome it. I don't know what to do about it. So what is our problem, guys? I say our problem is fear. That's one of the major things. We're fear of the church leadership. We're fear of God because they told us lies about God. We're fear of messing up, fear of our own selves, fear we might die, fear that we might be in the lake of fire, fear of the ending in Armageddon and all that's going to go on. Fear, fear, fear. You know, it's our addiction. It's our addiction to fear. So we might as well be saying we're like alcoholics that way, that we need to turn to a power greater than ourselves, which all has to do with the 12-step program, and realize that we've got to accept where we're at, accept that we've been brainwashed, accept that the leadership is very, very, very flawed. I mean, I could go on a million other things that I can talk about in here about what has gone on in this church. It's truly unbelievable, but I'm not, I'm gonna spare you for right now. But when we discover these things, which a lot of the church doesn't want to know about them, but when we do, though, finally, why do we struggle? I say because the root issue is a hook of fear, and we're not able to come to a place of acceptance, accepting that, for example, I am an alcoholic and I need help. I can't do it on my own. And I accept myself right where I'm at. I'm not going to beat myself up anymore. I've had enough of that. I'm going to accept that God loves me right where I'm at, but I need help. And somebody that's going to restore me to sanity. That's how they say it in the 12-step group. And so, Dan,
Well, you know, I asked your mother, you know, we were talking about this Herbert W. Armstrong, the founder of their church. And I was talking about a little bit about some of this stuff. And she said, I don't remember any of that.
Oh, I know.
And I went, whoa, you know, like not even
Like I'm making
interested
this
in
stuff
any
up.
kind of researching or looking into. And it's pretty much the same. Me and Angela have been to probably 200 different churches, you know, the Seventh Day, you know, different ones. We just wanted to visit. And it's very similarly the same thing with the founders and the false predictions, and they don't want to go there. What I see are just people being comfortable in community. They don't really care. I mean, really, I think they're happy to some degree that they have a community. You know, when I look
That's
at your
true.
mom,
That's true.
she's like so happy to
That's a
have a
plus.
community. A lot of us have been very bored because we've gotten out of community.
That's true.
If you haven't gotten on with life or have a career or some kind of talent or something that you can lean into, it could be pretty boring because it didn't matter really what your status was or anything when you were a witness. You could just have a family, a big family. You went to the hall, people would have you over. Everybody was pretty much similar in education. But I think it's just, I don't know. It has to do with so many things, self-esteem,
Oh, yeah.
not wanting to look at things,
That's true.
you know, who wants to be responsible? I mean, you know, when you leave religion, I call it now, some of it, most of it is a crutch for me. But I see people that use it to get through life. You know, I used it when I first was heavily into the witnesses. I went through a divorce and I leaned on the organization, and all these people were there telling me, hey, it's going to be okay. You're going to meet a sister, you know. And I kind of, it wasn't that I was using it because I really believed it, but at the time I even needed it. Yeah, you know what I mean? I needed it. I wasn't developed. My mind wasn't developed. I couldn't think for myself. You know, I thought the world was going to end by 75. My dad's message was, you're never going to drive. And so I graduated in 77. So I never thought I'd drive. I thought when I graduated, I wasn't even going to graduate. So I graduated with a D-, wasn't planning for college, wasn't planning for, and maybe my family was on the bottom of the totem pole as far as the witnesses, but we were freaks. When we went in the hall, we sat in the back of the hall. But I was that dumbed down when I was in there. I was pretty dumbed down. I could hardly read. And so I guess I just coasted along with it. There was a sense of security when I really got back involved in the late 70s and I got baptized. There was a sense of security for me because I had friends, I had people to lean on, people to drink with, people to go out to eat with. You know,
and no matter where you go after this religion, you kind of we're tribal, guys, we are. And we tend to want to find another group where we can feel we're a part of a family. That's just normal. It's normal that we feel that way. So we shouldn't knock that we feel that way. But what Dan and I have found is no matter where we go, it's the same old routine all over again. Men trying to control men, women trying to control women, whatever. And the power hungriness, the wanting the power over the people. It doesn't matter where you go. They have that there. And I don't care where I have been. And it's truly unbelievable. But I want to go back to denial just for a minute. This is an interesting thing about it, because I want to see, I'm going to try to get to a deeper aspect of what we're experiencing in these cults. Okay. So we have, according to Claudia I. Jewett, Claudia explains that we have a built-in mechanism in ourselves that operates to screen our devastating information and to prevent us from becoming overloaded. And then Melody Beatty says in Codependent No More that psychologists tell us denial is a conscious or unconscious defense that all of us use to avoid, reduce, or prevent anxiety when we're threatened. And we use it to shut out our awareness of things that would be too disturbing to know. And so she says, Melody Beatty says, denial is a shock absorber for the soul. It's an instinctive and natural reaction to pain, loss, and change. It protects us. It wards off the blows of life until we can gather our own coping resources and tools. Well, when we get out of there, as you guys are beginning to learn, if you've been listening to me very much at all, is that we came out of there without tools. And so we don't have the mechanisms. We're saying that once you get a handle on what's happened and you can, you feel safe to come out of your shell like a turtle, then you do a little bit by little bit. Sometimes you run back in and you run back out, but then we begin to use the tools that we know. Well, guess what? What if you came out of some horrendous thing and you didn't have any tools? And that's one of the biggest, fattest problems. So that's why I say we do need to get a little bit of education. We need to, I would definitely suggest, I always do, to read the book Codependent No More by Melody Beatty. And you can also get that same information if you went to an Al-Anon class, which is like women of men, women, children, women, men with wives, go there for overcoming what they have to deal with their love, the love of their life, who's drinking heavily, and then how to not be part of the sick cycle that keeps it all, working. And so that they can feel good in their lives and not feel like they're having to cover up her lies and, not taking care of themselves, doing the job for everybody, and because they're always drunk and, calling in sick for them and every kind of thing. So we have to come to a point where we realize that we in this religion that we're growing up in, we are in shock for a long, long time. We don't want to have to dig down and start opening up these wounds, because it means we got to talk about God. We got to talk about God may be killing us. And we got to talk about what our parents, we don't want to go there. So we just tend to want to just blot that out of our minds and not dig down deep, because it just hurts too bad. And I remember at a jail, I was teaching life skills at one time, and we were trying to help, these guys with some of this codependency teachings. And she says, look, you know what, if I start talking about what's hurting inside, if I start talking about what's going on, she says, I will start crying, and I guarantee you I will never be able to stop. She literally thought that by bringing up the wounds and even thinking about it, she would cry until she died. Literally, she thought that. Isn't that something?
Oh, yeah.
But that pain is so great. And I just want to add that why we start drinking, why we start drugging, why we get, sicknesses that lead us to go to the doctor to get pain prescription medicine that takes some of the pain away. And then we're really addicted to that pain medication after a time. And because it somehow helps us cope. But see, that's not a proper coping mechanism, but that's how we all get really, really, really stuck. Now we have guilt and shame over that. So it's just like one little, painful situation over after the other. And part of the denial is having sort of a magical thinking that things are just going to go away on their own. They'll just magically disappear. And it's pretty crazy thinking, because that's not gonna get it done. Unfortunately, I wish that it would, but we got to come to some point where we're ready to resign ourselves to say, you know what, I want to have, I finally want to live the life of my dreams. And I understand that it can't be the dreams that I've always had all my life. Those dreams I've got to let go of. I have to come to the terms of saying, I accept the fact that I have had some losses, and here are the losses. I've cried and cried it out. I'm depressed. I've taken the medications. I've done everything I can, but I am ready to move on. And I'm ready to say yes to new dreams, a new way of living, a new way of being. And when you get to that point, Melody Beatty says, Dan says, I say, because we've had personal experience at it, that is when some door opens from heaven, is how I feel like. That's what Melody Beatty feels too. And Dan and I both, we feel the same, that you're then given some empowerment at that point that you choose that I want to move on. I'm ready to accept what has happened. I'm going to accept my losses. I'm going to accept the loss of my dreams, and I'm ready to move on. And there is something that happens at that point. You are given help, empowerment to then make steps towards getting well. You're guided and directed to the right books, to the right classes. It's like synchronicity starts falling into place, and everything starts to get better, doesn't it, Dan?
Yeah.
And I remember, guys, I remember saying, man, I'll tell you what, my life is never going to be the same again. I'm never going to have a family meeting at my home again. Nothing will ever be the same. And I'm telling you, something inside of me said loud and clear, that's right. It will never be the same. It will only be different. Will you accept different? And I'm like, I knew somehow that had to be God inside of me. It was a very powerful thought. And then I'm like, okay, all right, but it's never going to be as good as it was. And then the thought was, no, it will just be different. It will never be less. It will just be different. And I'm like, okay, all right, all right. I will accept different. I will. And so I did. And then God was so good to me. He had my mother-in-law. I call my mother-in-law, and she knew I had left knowing that the people that were in my life wanted me dead. And they absolutely did. And my family all got me out of the home that I was living in by myself and said, you're in danger. Everybody decided that you're in danger. You've got to get out of here.
That was the cult after the Worldwide Church of God.
Yeah, that's right. I was in a secondary cult. And so I got out of that, and I met Dan. So I filed for divorce on a Friday, and on Monday I met Dan. And we were doing some mutual training.
You call me a rebound.
I'd already been separated for a year. I was totally alone for a year. But and I'd done a lot of processing during that time. I really do. I feel very strongly that
And you
that
made
happened.
me wait a year.
I did, because I felt like God told me I needed to wait another year. So it was 2 years from the date my husband left me, and that till I got married to Dan. But it was not lesser. So that God told me that. I feel it was God. It was the thought, okay, but I feel it was God. I really do, because it was not my normal. Like, I'm complaining, saying my life will never be the same again. And I'm being told, no, it's just going to be different. So I took him up on it. And then that Thanksgiving, I invited Dan to my sister's, where I was invited to go. And it was the most fabulous Thanksgiving I have ever had. Completely different kind of foods than we normally had. It was the best. It was the most finest, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then after that came Christmas, and it was different. But Dan invited his daughters from Idaho. We were living then in Colorado. And they came, and we had the most glorious Christmas ever. And it's never been the same ever. And then the blessing. I called my mother-in-law and my husband's family, and I said, hey, you guys, do you think that this and that and the other things going on that I've come to realize? Do you think that I believe God showed me? Do you think this is true? And they're like, oh yeah, it's true. All right. And then I called her to get some recipes for Thanksgiving. And she says, Angela, you need to forget about all of us. You need to start your life over again and put us all behind and just start your life over. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what? I've got 3 children. What are you talking about? And she says, Angela, I mean it. And I'm like, oh my God. And I don't know, but my soul, I knew that was right, because I was in danger of death.
A lot of hatred.
And a lot of hatred. And I needed to start over. I could not fix, and she knew it. She's a very wise woman, very wise. She'd been through hell and back again on her own. And she had died when she had my husband at birth, and she had an experience in the heaven. And when she came back, she had this uncanny wisdom. She had wisdom, I'm telling you. She's only 16. when she had that son, but she was given a gift of wisdom. And that wisdom, she had intuitive something that went with it. And she knew that I was in danger. And she said, forget about all of us. And I've been married 24 years. But I knew that she was telling me the truth. And I needed to do that. And so I moved on and I started my life over again at age 45. And you know what? It's not been bad. It's been absolutely wonderful. And I never dreamed that it
Totally
could, it
different.
could be. It's just been absolutely different. And so I just want to say that, you know, we do have to let go of some things, though. We have to come to an acceptance place. And we have to realize that the fears and the deep wounds, the deep programming that's been done to us cannot be extricated out of us on its own. We're going to need some help. Like the alcoholic knew they needed some help. I need help. I can't do this. Lord, restore me to sanity. I've come to a place where I accept and I believe that you will restore me to sanity. I trust that you will. And I was going to read you those steps real quick because I love them. If you've never read these steps, I'll make them quick. Admit that you're powerless over your problem. Okay. Powerless to control others in the case of the codependent. Come to believe that power greater than yourself can restore you to sanity and help you get well. This is for the codependent, okay? This is not the AA words, but it's slightly changed. Make a decision to turn your life over to this greater power. Surrender your will over to this greater power in favor of his will for your life. Taking a thorough moral inventory of yourself and your weaknesses, then admitting your wrongs and weaknesses and shortcomings. And my thought is without condemning yourself or guilting and shaming yourself, which us codependents tend to do. So you admit them to yourself, to God and yourself and another human being that is totally and fully trustworthy, because there's many people you should not tell your secrets to, that is for sure. You're prepared yourself entirely to be willing and ready. So this is a beginning stage, willing and ready to have God heal and remove these shortcomings and weaknesses. Then in all humility, eventually you ask your higher power to heal you and remove these character weaknesses and shortcomings and addictions and whatever you feel that that needs to be changed. Again, I think what I've come to realize and alcoholics come to realize, we just have tried and tried and tried to fix these problems, these programs that are hooked into us since childhood or whatever, and we can't get them out. And we can't get rid of the fear, and we can't get rid of the emotions, and we can't fix the problem, and we can't. And so we have to turn it over. That's the acceptance. And you're accepting of your weaknesses, and you come to believe that God loves you in spite of them, and that he's not going to throw you away. That he said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And that, you know, he loves us. We're his kids. And you come to realize that. And then you prepare a written list of all the people that you feel that you've harmed and affected due to these shortcomings. And you become willing to make amends, which is apologizing. Then you make the amends with some of these people, and sometimes writing letters, and you don't give the ones to the ones you feel is unsafe for them or for yourself. You don't give those, you literally take those letters and you burn those, but the ones you can and you feel safe to do so for yourself and others, you go to those people and you apologize to them. And you try not to get them to apologize back to you. It's your deal. It's you're trying to overcome for you. You choose to become consciously aware of any ongoing codependent behavior or whatever it is that's trying to creep back in. You keep looking out for it. Like, you know, maybe there's some girl at your office who keeps inviting you out to have a drink, or somebody who keeps wanting you to, you know, eat too much, or keeps bringing sweets to the office, or, you know, whatever is your weakness. You're somebody who's a fear monger, who's always giving you news of end time stuff, and it makes you go nuts. You have to look out for that, because it's going to hook you back into the weakness. So you're on the lookout, and you're always giving that over to God. Choose to continue to improve yourself by continuing to practice these steps and the overcoming of codependency or whatever it is you're trying to overcome. Our fear addiction, guys, our religious addiction, our fear addiction is what it is. Fear of authority, fear of the law, the mean, mad God. Those things are fears that we have to get unhooked from. And then finally, having received help from these steps, you agree to reach out and share these steps and help other people if they're going through the things you just you're trying to overcome. We're never totally done, right? But you continue to practice these principles in all your daily affairs. So that's the whole 12 step. But you can see how we need help.
It's amazing how it applies to religion too, and it's
Yeah, it really, really is, Dan, because these are things that each of us, it's funny, each of us, Dan and I, have noticed that are hooked by a little different hook than each other. There's some common denominators, like you guys in the Jehovah's Witnesses, it's the name Jehovah. It's the
governing body.
yeah. And in our church, it's funny, other religions call them governing body too. It's kind of interesting. But you guys also, you have the fear of Jehovah. We have the fear of God. We have the Sabbath keeping. The fear that if we don't obey the church rules and keep the holy days and keep the Sabbath day, that we're going to be in the lake of fire. And if I leave and I rebel against the church, then if I don't get it together, at least by the end of the tribulation that's to come, this is the church belief I was growing up in, then you will be in the lake of fire. So my mother, I was baptized in there. So she thinks that if I don't get to go through the tribulations, then if I don't repent during that tribulations, which is my last and final chance, then I will be in the lake of fire. And so she does have responsibility. She does feel a sense of, I got to talk Angela into coming around to the truth again. And when last time I visited, my stepfather says, it's just because you're rebellious. I'm like, oh my God. It's like such crazy judgment, it's like, don't need it. I have plenty enough judgment going on in my own self. But anyway, it's like we have to overcome these. And these are things we have to turn over to God, because this stuff can eat you up alive and you could be mad at them forever. But you know what? They're just ignorant. They don't know better. They're doing the best they can. They're stuck, and we're beginning to get free. I say, yay for us. It's not like every day is a picnic. It's not, but we're beginning. We're our beginning stages of getting free. And that's a beautiful place, but we do have to work it. Like it says in that, when you shake hands at the end of the 12 step, when you do it, you all shake hands, you not shake hands, you hold hands, and you say, something about the whole last thing is, and it works if you work it. It works if you work it. We're all, and you're, yes, we're going to work the steps. We're going to work the program. We're going to work the forgiveness. We're going to get this forgiveness stuff out of our system. We're going to, we're going to accept what is. We're going to face it head on. We're going to, not be mad at them for cussing us out because whatever. We're going to love them anyway. We're going to forgive them. We're going to do this. We can do it. It works if you work it. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. And so we keep coming back because we know that we all are in this together. We're trying to heal together. And so isolating is not a good idea, but definitely look for the love, because in my church, all these crazy shenanigans went on where the church leader was crazy, spending a lot of money. He bought a jet airplane. He wined and dined dignitaries all around the world. He bought expensive jewelry and property all over the place. He had amassed a lot of wealth and 3 colleges. I mean, it was an immense wealth. And pretty much, they just thought they could do whatever they wanted. And they did. And they got in trouble and were come after because of misspending of money, not proper use. They were being accused of that. And just so many things that went on. And when we start to see the lack of love, because like when they're telling you your life is ruined and your family has to be divided, you've got to train your kids up in a way that's not proper. And you have to allow your family to die, or you're going to be in the lake of fire. They're going to be in the lake of fire, and on. All these different crazinesses that went on in there, that women are nothing, that they're to be absolutely subservient to pretty much like children, be seen and not heard. I'm just saying, that's what I saw. And, you can't go to doctors and then they change it. I mean, when you see these kind of lack of love and empathy and the wrong way of raising your children, that's not a way of love. To me, it bottoms down. The bottom root of this is there has got to be the love, the compassion, support, connecting people directly with God, not with the leadership. When you see people trying to get you to follow them and, making themselves special and making your religion special, That's one of the signs of a cult for sure. Also, using up all your time, so you have no time to think, keeping you busy, busy, busy in church busyness and law, rules, church meetings, all these kinds of things that the different religions do, Scientology included. They keep you hopping. You know, you got to spend money to get clear, quote clear, every kind of thing that just burdens you down. It doesn't connect you to your higher power, God, whatever you want to call God. It doesn't do that. If it's not doing that, it's just not the right avenue. And we need to get out. And I don't know what else. Do you have anything more to say about
That's
that?
all. That's, when I look at people, it's like, is your life working? And if they're not working, I ask them maybe to take a look at it. I mean, what do you do as a coach? You can't, all you can do is say, you may want to look at what you're doing, and have them take a look, because if they're not willing to look, then that's about all we can do. And that's what we have to do with ourselves. We have to look in the mirror at ourselves. We have to say, is my life working? Am I doing what I want to do? And I had some ideas, myself, based on the scriptures, that, these things and greater you would do. I had teachers that told me most of me was up on the shelf, that I could call down gifts and talents that I never knew I had. And so I was like, wow, that was exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I was willing to look hard at myself and examine myself, and examine alcohol, examine all these things that were distracting me. And I eliminated them. And when I did, I actually got to do more. I started to unfold. There was so much more to me than I ever expected. And so I got to actually engage in those things, because I was willing to take a look at myself. And a lot of people in religions, they're pissed off, they're angry, they're tired of waiting. They have one thought that any day someone's coming back to fix everything. And
Yeah. And it's
they never
always,
become, they never get involved as life as participation.
yeah.
They,
And it's always somebody else's fault too, isn't
yeah,
it? Right, Dan? It's
Yeah.
always somebody else's fault. That's the victim. That's where we don't want to go, you guys. If we're blaming other people for our unhappiness in our life, then we're victims, and we have to admit that. See, that's another one of those things we have to come to the realization. Oh my God, I'm a victim. This lady said to me one time, Angela, you're a victim. I'm like, what? No, I'm not. And I had to really examine that. I couldn't believe it. She's a very amazing woman, and I just couldn't believe she said that to me.
thing
But
about it is, people got to want to change. That's the
that's
only,
true.
it's none of our
That's coming to
business.
acceptance.
That's the thing about, the the scripture they used to use with us, the blood is on our hands. There's nobody's blood on our hands. Everybody gets to choose. And if somebody wants to be a victim, they can be a victim their whole life. If they want to be angry, they can be angry their
That's
whole life.
true.
If they want to be sad, they can be sad their whole life.
That's true.
Nobody has to fix anything. And so, that's my first thing when I talk to somebody or they talk to me. That's the first thing I'm looking for, is, do they want something different? I'm not here to just hear whining, complaining. I don't want to hear stories. I don't want to enable the victim. I don't want to service the spirit of the victim. I believe it's a spirit. Call it what you want, but I don't want to service it by too much sympathy. Yeah, so I don't engage. I want to know if they're interested in help, or they want to just keep telling their story.
Yeah.
So
And Rhonda Brenton is a wonderful woman. Her husband, sorry, her father killed himself in front of her, and she was just devastated. He'd already killed her mother, and then knelt down right in front of her on his knees and put the gun to his head and killed himself. And so she has become the most amazing, powerful woman. And she did a program. What's it called, Dan?
starting over.
Starting over. And then she wrote a book, Fearless Living.
Got an Academy Award.
Yeah, Fearless Living. And she wrote Fearless Loving. And she said everything is fear. Everything. That if you don't do, you're not successful in your life, if you're not happy, if it all boils down to fear. It's fear. Every time it's fear. And so that's why fearless living. She
She has
just gets,
Fearless Living Institute.
yeah, she's so powerful, man. And she's right on the money too. It's
She
true.
calls you on your stuff.
Oh, boy, yeah.
She can see right through. You can call it intuitive, but because she's broken through the barriers to fear, thinking she was nobody, thinking she was with this messed up family where the father blew his wife's brains out, pointed the gun at her, and then shot himself in the head. She thought, why wasn't I good enough to shoot? Why wasn't I good enough to kill? The horn went off for hours and traumatized her, but somehow she got through it. She got a book offer for $250,000. She was on Oprah. She was, with Yolanda
TV
Van
program.
Sant. Who else?
She's still on today.
Yeah, and
helping everybody.
she's still going strong, but she can see through. You can call it intuitive or life experience.
It's like
but
the God
She
wisdom,
can
right?
cut right through the crap with you. She
Yeah.
can just cut right through and say, Dan, because I went to one of her classes. It was called Fearless Living down in Boulder, Colorado. I remember going in this group and they said, you're a coward and a weak person. And I had to wear this thing on me that said I was a coward and something else. And I had to explain to everybody how I was a coward. And I looked at everybody and I said, are you sure I'm a coward? They go, oh yeah, you're a coward. There was like 10 of them in my group. And they go, 100% you're a coward. I'm like,
Because he'd act like a bully most of the time.
yeah, I was like this strong character, and I would tremble when I talked and all this stuff, but it was so funny. But you know what? Once I came out of denial, once I said, you are scared of your own shadow. In fact,
Accepted it. You accepted
yeah,
it.
a lady put a line on the floor with paper. She literally tore some paper and made this little line in front of me. And it was Rhonda
She
Britton.
did with lots
It
of
was
people were in
before
there.
she got really big and got her book deals and went to Hollywood. But I went to one of her seminars and she tore all this little paper up and she put it across front. She's okay. Everyone's ready to be a success in life or do something with their life. Just step over the line.
In other words, your commitment to success.
I froze in my seat. Like the Tin Man, I was like, ding, 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 and I just was like, and I wouldn't move. And I was sitting there like this. I don't play this stupid game. And, this lady's talking. Well, the lady that I was with, she was from Boulder and her name was Granola. And she literally ran up there and hurdled the damn seats and, jumped across the line. Like rolled on the floor, and she was like, I'm ready to, do it. And I sat there and I was scared, guys. And you know what? But when I was ready to look at that I was afraid to speak, that I was afraid to speak in front of people, that I was afraid to do this, then I could finally start looking at why was I afraid and get better. Now we've done television shows. We've had a couple of radio shows, X-Zone Radio out of Canada. We were on 6 screens for a year and you just get more comfortable. But at the time I was a terrified little kid. I was but I was willing to look at my flaws, at my weaknesses and transcend them.
So Beatty says that acceptance is the ultimate paradox. This colon. We cannot change who we are until we accept ourselves the way we are. She cites the book Honoring the Self on Acceptance. And here's a little paragraph of it. If I can accept that I am who I am, that I feel what I feel, that I've done what I have done, if I can accept it, whether I like all of it or not, then I can accept myself, my shortcomings, my self-doubts, my poor self-esteem. Accepting your poor self-esteem, interesting. She goes on to say that when we can finally accept all of that, then we have been able finally to put ourselves on the side of reality rather than attempting to fight reality. This clears the road for the beginning stages of healing and strengthening our self-esteem, which apparently is one of the first things that we begin to get healed, is our self-esteem. Interesting, don't you think? And she also says that acceptance, Beatty says, is not forever. It is for the present moment. But by surrendering and accepting where we are at, she says she has found that God is willing to intervene in her circumstances, but seems reluctant to intervene when we're not sincere in our asking at a gut level. And again, I said, Dan and I both said, God, help me. Please, Lord God, help me. I can't do this. I can't do this. And from a deep gut place, we say, God, help me. And God intervenes. And he starts to put things together, put things in place.
Put us back together.
It's really, truly amazing. And so, one thing I was going to talk about, Dan, you were talking about how when you went to those elders and you said, hey guys, did that prophecy just pass? We're going to talk about that whole thing where it was the weirdest thing, because Dan and I marvel at that whole thing, because Dan was just sincerely asking a question, because it's right that when we have a question, instead of harboring them, like in a marriage, when you're upset about something, you go to that person and you say, hey, honey, that really bothered me that, you've been coming home every single night late, every single night for the last 2 weeks. And I call work and you're not there. What's going on? Don't you think you should be allowed to have an answer? But when he went to the elders that he had drank with and serviced and door to door with and did many activities with, parties at their home with, and close with, he says that to them and they look at each other like, uh-oh.
Like I said, they were my friends, but I was in the generation prophecy, and I remember going to Bill and looking at him, and he was my buddy. We had pizzas together, we drank together, and we did carpet together, and
Work together.
Yeah, and I said, hey, Bill, did we just pass a prophecy? And he was standing next to another elder, and it was like a deer in the headlights. It was like something, I don't know what was going on, but they looked at each other like that, and they looked back at me, and I didn't know what was going on until about a week and a half later, when Bill took me aside and said, we got a letter back from the governing body, and be careful about what you're asking because you're on apostate watch.
Imagine that.
I had never looked at apostate literature. I was just into the Revelation book. I was very excited. I knew exactly what I was talking about the generation, based on Matthew, based on food shortages, earthquakes, and all these things would happen in one generation of 70 or 80 years. And so I was like, man, we're right there. And when they said there was new information coming out about the generation prophecy, I was like, what do you mean new information? That was where my mind went.
So the point is that Dan had a question. And I want to just say that when you're in a relationship, we all have questions. We have questions at work. Why are we doing this way, guys? Wouldn't it be better to at work, right? In your marriage partner, if you have a question with your marriage partner, they don't just say, get out. They don't do that. It's till death do us part. It's forever. God says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Not if you do something wrong, out. That's not God. And I just find it extremely fascinating, the severity of these churches when you argue, when you question. You guys, we question in everyday life and everything. Why should that be so odd, right? And one of the other telltale signs of cults is that they tell on you. They're supposed to tell. They tattletale, and I don't know why, but that's like one of the definite signs.
I was
Exhaustion. Yeah,
I was surprised. I just looked at them like, why are they looking at me like that? These are my buddies.
yeah.
But I told Angela maybe they had heard about apostates and reading literature. I was never concerned in that. I never really thought about that much, but maybe they had been through something like that. But they both gave me the weirdest look. It was like we were at enmity right immediately. And I never really talked to them again. I mean, other than the warning I got, and my attitude and my personality was, nobody threatens me. You're not threatening me. You're not telling me I can't ask some questions. I was done right there. I was like, no way.
I got to tell you the craziest thing. I don't know why I have to tell you this, but Dan decides to take me to Fort Collins, where I could go to one of the Jehovah's Witnesses conferences, just see what went on. Is that what you call them? Conferences?
Well, convention.
Convention. Okay, sorry, I knew it was the wrong word. So we go in there, and who is in there? Bill, the very guy who him and the elder went and told on Dan and got him on apostate watch. The very guy. And what does he say? Oh, me and my wife, we split up because we wanted to get divorced, but they wouldn't let us. So what we had to do was, I'm not a believer. I never have been. I'm just standing there with Dan. I'm listening to this. He goes, so what we had to do was I had to cheat with this other woman. so then that they would release me from the marriage. So I did. And so now, and now we're getting divorced, or we got divorced, or whatever. It's like, I don't believe I just heard this. Oh, okay. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Oh,
he
my
says,
God.
well, my brother's over there and his wife's over here. And I said, yeah, they're married, right? He said, yeah, but they're getting a divorce, but first he's got to cheat with this girl over here. But now they might get back together. And it was like,
I thought it was him.
I don't know, I
I thought
forget.
it was him.
It was
It was
so
him.
crazy. It was like, I remember that.
I'm like, oh my God. Okay. There is nothing normal about this. You're crazy. You're going to have
Do you know,
to make the church leaders
do you know what my
happy
ex
with
told me?
you.
My ex, I was married, this is my third time. So my second wife, or my first wife, she was from France, and she came up and she said, I told her, I'm not free until you have an affair. Isn't that funny? So she comes over, she goes, you're free.
Ah,
And I'm celebrating. You know what I mean? It's like, this is like insanity.
this is
You know what I mean?
insanity. This is
It was like, I didn't want to
insanity.
lose her. But I said, until you commit adultery, I can't remarry. I'm like,
Yeah.
in a
That's right. He wanted to remarry because he had a girlfriend or something, and they were broken up kind of already, but he wanted to get married, but he can't get married until he's committed adultery. So he just goes and commits adultery. He's telling me this. I'm a non-believer, a non-member. And I'm like, okay, let's get out of here. And what also witnessed was, it was a freaking fashion show. And the whole thing, first of all, plays that were unbelievable, just going to hook you in the mind, and you're never going to be free. When you see that, you'll never ever leave that church. All right. And then I'm seeing just guys, literally the guys were in the arm, leading the girl down the aisle, back and forth. And it's just a parade of women in their beautiful high heels and fancy clothes and all this the whole time, just distracting everybody. And I'm like, oh my God, this is completely nuts. Anyway, for whatever that's worth, I accepted that was a cult. That's what was my, I wasn't in denial anymore. I believed that. Anyway, I guess we should get off this horn. But does anyone have any comments or anything, or questions or thoughts?
I've enjoyed this.
Oh, good.
You guys talk. I was just thinking about the fear part. It wasn't until I let go of the fear that I actually had freedom, because I had this fear of everything that we were taught, the indoctrination, the guilt. But when I had that experience, that we talked about before, it was, the fear disappeared. And I knew from that moment that these men dictating my relationship with God anymore, because I had that personal relationship, and nothing could get in between that relationship ever again. I couldn't believe that in an instant, in a blink of an eye, I had that realization. But
Wow.
people need community, and so they're afraid. They have that fear of leaving because they have the family thing. They'll take your family away. You're not going to be able to see your friends. Sometimes it's your work. They have.
Debbie, could you mute it just for a quick second, and then we'll get you on here. Okay, so
Hey, Debbie, I hear a cat or something.
can you mute it just for a minute?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem.
How do I?
That's it. Okay, great. I think we're good now.
That's okay. So it was that fear, like you guys were talking about, and the mind can't have those. They can't have fear and hate along with love at the same time. Your brain can't occupy the space at the same time. So it's either you're going to love or you're going to fear. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't have that realization until I lost that fear. I had no fear of death. I had no fear of Armageddon. I had no fear of men anymore. Because when you almost die and you have a gift to live again, it's gone. Those things are gone. And the other thing was, you mentioned, Dan, about looking in the mirror. There's this exercise that some people will have you do, and it's looking in the mirror. When you're in a meditative state, and when you're looking in the mirror and that reflection back at you, and then you contemplate what you're doing in life, how you're going to proceed, you see yourself, but you also see the spark of God, because your connection with God, however you want to call it, the cosmic or whatever, it's within you. Now, when we were in different cults and religions, they take that away from you. They're controlling all that aspect. But when you're allowed to sit with yourself and be you and be yourself and take hold of your spirituality, and you're not their slaves, you get to rebuild that relationship with yourself and the creator. And anyway, that's basically on my notes that I wrote down.
That is so good. I'm so glad you shared that.
So I just wanted to share that stuff with you guys. So
Thank you for
Yeah, you
that.
gotta cut out the middleman. You wonder why the middleman works so hard. I used to go to different churches, and there's the pastor up there, on the platform, and he's like, "How's my sheep doing today?" Yeah, and I've been designated to herd you, and I'm like, oh my God, I've recreated the witnesses again, and it was weird,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking, why are they doing okay? Why don't they think about their sin? Why are they making me think about all that I'm doing wrong? My sexual things
Yeah.
wrong. You need to celebrate recovery. You need this, you need that. And they keep us in this dumbed down, never connected to who we are, never really explaining things, just reading Bible, quoting scriptures, telling us this is what the scriptures are saying, and you're falling short. And I think it's for control, and because they certainly go out of their way to keep you in this box. I mean, when you go into a church now, I don't know if you probably haven't been to a church in a long time, but if you go into a church, the first thing they do is they give you a questionnaire, and they go, "We're going to find out what your gifts are." And the other thing they tell you is, we have everything here. We have art, we have literature, we have 1,500 versions of the Bible. We have this. Why would you go anywhere else? You don't need it. We have a hospital over here. We have this over
Food pantry, we have an art thing
have
over
food
there for doing
pantry.
art.
We
you
have
know?
free healthcare. Go ahead.
What I would say, if somebody's leaving a cult, I think that they should look into a lot of different things, but spend some time with themselves,
Amen.
and see where their interests are, and go into meditation and petition if you're used to praying, pray for gratitude that you're still alive and you get to experience. And everything on the planet is constantly changing. Matter is constant. It's the natural, it's the, what do they call it? Cosmic, it's natural law. So things in our life are going to change. I mean, it's an inevitable, but it's all a learning experience. We learn more about ourselves, and that is growth. So,
And it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
Pardon?
It doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No,
No,
it doesn't happen overnight. It's a
brick by brick.
process.
It's a brick by brick process.
Did you?
And patience.
Yes.
Do you feel
Be
like?
patient with yourself.
Yes.
Do you feel, Carrie, you were educated when you were a witness, other than the religion? Did you have like college? Did you have your arts and all the things that you do now, the beautiful paintings? See, I discovered a lot of that after the witnesses, and learned after the witnesses through reading tons of books and seminars.
In the spirit of
Funny.
creativity.
I used to get in trouble for being down the philosophy aisle at the library.
Ah,
I would get in trouble for having different books I wasn't supposed to have. I never had a college education because I just didn't go.
yeah.
But I made sure my children all have college educations. And then I educated myself by reading. I read a lot. And So I didn't, so no, that was something that was denied to us in the organization,
How about your art?
in my experience.
How about your art?
Yes. My art, okay. My art, it was wonderful that I did have an art teacher, and she was a witness. Her husband was not. She was the president of the art association. So I was tutored by her, and I learned color theory, and she taught me the basis for what I know now. So
That's
I'm
amazing.
forever grateful for
Oh,
that.
yeah. Oh, man.
Apparently her sister was a witch.
Oh.
So I was like, what's a witch?
Yeah.
So, but I did have my grandmothers, and my grandmothers, when they saw that I had an interest in leaving, they just started to educate me on a lot of things,
That's so great.
guided me onto the path that I am now. And they really helped me, and they gave me the support that I was doing the right thing and not to fear those men.
Yes.
You
Amen.
know, and it was loving. My grandfather said one time, my one daughter is a Catholic, my other daughter is a Mormon, and my son is a Jehovah's Witness. And I love all of them unconditionally.
Very nice.
They taught me unconditional love.
Oh, yeah.
I got put in a situation where the shunning was coming at me. I'm like, oh no, this is not right. And when I got old enough, I did not want to subject my kids to that.
Wow,
So,
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Thank
but
God.
it takes time.
It does.
You got to crack the fear.
Crack the fear.
Replace it with love.
I asked
Overcome
somebody the other
love.
day, Carrie, it was kind of a joke, but I said, who knitted the Muslim together in the womb?
The Muslim.
The Muslim. Who knitted the Muslim together in the womb? What do we say as witnesses? Who knitted us together in the womb?
Oh, I forget.
God.
God.
God knitted you together in the womb. So
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
so I was asking that the other day. I said, who knitted the Muslim together in the womb?
Okay.
Which is
Yeah.
to help them think, right? It says somebody knitted them together. Somebody put the seed called the spirit into that seed, or
Right.
was the person always housed within the seed and just hanging out in the woman for years? So if God, or I say if it's Muslim, it's Allah. Allah knitted them together in the womb, right? But I was saying, like, if God knitted the Muslim together in the womb, how could he be anything else but a Muslim or a Christian or a Kabbalist or a Tibetan monk
JW.
or a Buddha? You know what I mean? And if you were to talk to them and look at their lifestyle, you would think it was rather beautiful. You know, the
Right.
Buddhists, you know, meditating on these high mountains and doing nothing but in you know, in this silence and contemplation and disciplined and holy and kind. And how could they be any different? We were talking on our show the other day. How could they be any different if you were raised in Israel? There's 4 different religions on that same continent. How could they be any different if they were brought up in this religion? They had good parents. That's what they believed. Why would we ever try to change them? Why? And it came down to, how do we accept all the different programs? Because here's something to think about. All the people in all the different programs are absolutely true if you were to put those same people on a lie detector. If you were to put the Muslim on the lie detector and you gave him his Quran or whatever it was he has, and you said, is this true? Absolutely true. Nothing else but the truth. It would test as true. So would the Jehovah's Witnesses. So would the Mormons. So how can it all be true and all be false? Or is it just bigger than what we've collapsed into? So it's just some food for thought, you know, and moving into acceptance of the programs. We have to, it helps us to be able to accept the program when we understand that could it be any other way? Go ahead.
There's this one man who told a story, and it was, how can you tell the difference between spirituality and religion? And the person responded with, religion is like man-made plumbing that takes water uphill, takes it where it shouldn't go, and then it goes whistling back your backside without the benefit of the tap, is how he put it. which is kind of funny. Now, religion, that's something different. It's the stream, it's the refreshing waters that come from the top of the mountain, and then it streams down and refreshes everything it touches. If you have a question, go back to the stream, which is really interesting because religion, it is man-made, but a stream of spirituality. The point was that it's all the same. It all comes, all the creeks and everything, it comes from the same stream of spirit, that same consciousness of God or the God concept. So if you have questions about this religion or that religion, go back to the stream, go back to original spirituality, because that, and then he ends it with, remember, it arises in your heart, learn to bathe in it, because you to God.
Because what?
Because it'll lead you to God.
It'll lead you to God.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good.
And I thought that was just so beautiful, because really religions they're just man-made. They're man-made plumbing.
That's right. That's right.
You have questions, go back to the stream.
It's simple.
Go back to what God made.
Go to the center
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
Go to your center.
Right. Hey, we should get Debbie. Can you put yourself back on the microphone and I know you wanted to say a little something.
Okay,
Uh-oh. There we are.
there I am.
Hey.
I look all swelled up.
Oh, you look
Oh,
good.
this is funny that y'all are covering this tonight, because I've had one of those days that I started falling backwards into depression and fear, because yesterday I went I went to the cardiologist. They saw something, an X-ray. They called me back in for a CAT scan, and then I'm think I knew my cholesterol's perfect. I know my triglycerides are perfect. My A1C is right at the pre-diabetic level, and um and I've been really working, through natural things to get my health up. And then they told me, well, yeah, there's an artery um of yours that's showing calcification. And I'm thinking, well, it's probably not an important artery. I mean, they're all important, but not one of the mega important ones. And they said, actually, it's the one that when you have the heart attack, they call it the widowmaker, which is the same one my brother had 1 year ago.
Oh, wow.
And he had to have a quintuple bypass.
Oh, boy.
And when he said that, I've already had one heart attack and I've had 3 strokes, but they really think that they need to go in and do the heart cath, which I haven't allowed them to do anything invasive in a long time.
Hey, Debbie,
But this time,
your camera's moving
what?
around quite a lot. Your camera's moving around so much that's making me get a little bit dizzy. Can you make
Oh,
that?
I'm sorry. I'm holding my cell phone up.
Oh, God.
You're on a boat or
I
something.
did what?
I thought you were on a boat or something.
Oh, yeah.
Joking.
I understand what you're saying, because when people do that, I do the same thing. I'm trying to get where I can hear you, because my phone is so messed up. I don't know what to do. I'm having to register it multiple times a day.
So
I can't hear anything.
We're trying to
What?
trying to benefit the hearers on that program. So is there anything you could say that's helped you with today, or something that made you think about?
Well, yeah, it did help me today because it kind of has pulled me back to reality again. Don't give in to the fear, because I found myself in fear. And all of a sudden, my brain started going back to being a witness and the trauma of that and the trauma of my accident and all that. And I just started feeling myself free falling. And I've got a bad his mental health history, some of my problems. And but what Jehovah's Witness doesn't have mental problems. No, I
Right.
think there's
It's
none.
common, yeah.
They all have mental problems, and I'm no exception.
Yeah.
And I felt myself being drawn back into that depression and giving up. When I first tuned in, I heard Dan describing exactly what my day was and how I felt exactly. And I'm like, oh my God, I keep forgetting the time difference from where y'all are and where I'm at.
Right,
Because
right.
I'm only less than an hour from Mountain Time.
Gotcha.
So some things we do get Mountain Time. And some things are central. So
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's right. There's on that cusp right there.
yeah. And
We should, do you think you could give us just kind of a final something? Well, we've already gone about 10-12 minutes over our hour and a half, and we need to let Carrie Kay get on with her night. So
oh,
you could
okay.
wrap
Well,
it up
We want you to
for
know
us?
it's
no,
great
I
to see you,
just
Yeah, it's
Debbie.
really great to see you, Deb.
You're looking good. You're looking really.
Yeah,
You
look
look good.
your eyes
You
look
don't
really
look like a
good.
person that's having lots of problems, but
Not at all.
because you look too good, but
But
you
maybe
look
could,
young. Your skin looks soft, and
maybe you could give us some good advice tonight that to make everybody feel like they're on the right road by listening, whatever we got to say to them. What do you think we should do?
I really felt that I need my own tribe. I need a tribe here where I've got the tribe over the internet, lots of people, but I don't have anybody at all here. And when I saw the artwork behind her a second ago, I thought she's an artist. And I didn't know anything about her, but I knew instantly when I saw the artwork around her. I'm like, that's what I want to do so bad is
Oh,
paint.
is that right? Oh,
And I was and today my daughter and I didn't get along, and I came in and I said, I've got to write, just let me write, because that's my gift, is writing. And I think art and writing and music, and I was really getting into all the spiritual things, just spirituality
he's holding
for
up
a
a painting
long
there.
time.
can you see the pain she's holding up for you right now, Debbie? She's
What?
showing.
Can you see this?
Can you see it?
This is one that I'm working on right now.
Oh, that's
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
Wow, that's pretty, Carrie Kay.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Oh, I would love to do that.
That's beautiful.
Man, oh man.
That's crazy.
What a wonderful
This one,
bumps.
this one is named These Birds.
Oh, how wonderful.
Oh,
I see one bird.
Yep, two birds.
Yeah, there's
up
one
there.
bird down there.
Okay,
Yep,
I see
one
that
up
The
one.
there.
parrot.
Oh, there he is. Oh, I didn't realize that was a
Yeah.
bird right there.
Is that oils?
Huh?
Is that oils?
This is acrylic with oil on top.
Oh,
Shading
Wow.
with
nice.
oils now.
Oh, that's so
Wow,
pretty,
that's
Carrie
got some
Kay.
depth to it. You've
Wow.
got some beautiful artwork.
Yes, and I'm proud of you for what you're doing right now with your art too, by the way.
I want to
Thank
say
you.
something too.
Good job.
I do some paintings, but I've never been taught, but I'm going to have you maybe critique them and tell me how I could make them a little more richer, a little more.
Maybe we should get together.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we should.
Okay,
Dan-
can I come?
Yes. You know, Dan, you guys, there's some talent in this church. I know there is in this worldwide church God, JWs. We got some talent, guys. I think
Yep.
we should all start trying to
Mhm.
try our wing at different things. You know,
It was
what-
healing.
It is.
Painting is very healing. Writing is very healing.
Yes, it is. And songwriting.
And
Well, I want to hurry up and write what I want to write because I keep thinking I'm gonna die.
Ooh,
And I don't want to die. And I'm thinking, why have I got that on my mind? But it's because of the, heart cath coming up and knowing the risk and knowing what my daughter will do with me if
mhm.
I do have a stroke and I'm not able to communicate or
I
something.
got a question for you. Do you think you can actually die? Have you watched any near-death experiences on YouTube? There's thousands of them.
Not if you're not supposed to, that's for sure.
I've died before.
Oh, see, so you didn't
I've
die.
I've crossed over and came and
Wow.
was sent back
Wow. How
twice.
exciting.
that's happened to me too. I crossed
Really?
over once.
Wow. So exciting.
What happened when you got there?
I was sent back.
Aha.
How far did you get? I mean, what did you
Um,
see?
I saw I saw the tunnel and a hand came down and said, Carrie, you can come if you want. And I was immediately into the beautiful realm. And then I just had immediate contact and immediate knowledge downloads.
Wow.
Everything was going to be okay. And any question I had was being answered.
Wow.
And
Was it by
they
God or
and
what answered the question?
it was like an inner knowing. Like I'd ask a question within and I'd get an immediate answer. And then I had an angel appear to me.
Whoa.
One. And then I actually had, guess I was struggling. I was coming in and out. And I had an angel or something was with me the entire night, rubbing the parts of my body that were hurting.
Wow.
And then it would give me directions. Like at one point it said, well, it said communicated and come to the window. And I came to the window and I looked up and it showed me 3 beautiful hearts in the sky
300.
and said, and then I did, and then it said, and that was the only audible that I think I heard. And it was the only for the whole thing. It said, Carrie, you have a good heart. So it basically, don't worry, don't feel guilty. You're doing the right thing. And it was all over guilt because of believing Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, wow.
Did you
That
have a
was
heart
the
attack or an
extreme.
accident? Did you have a heart attack or an accident?
I stopped eating and I stopped drinking. So I must have been fasting for like 5 days and I didn't sleep. So then and I was praying intense prayer to Jehovah. And I kept repeating Jehovah's name. Jehovah, please help me. Jehovah, please help me. Jehovah, please help me. And then all of a sudden that happened.
Wow.
And then I want to see my children grow up. And then I felt myself go back into my body.
Wow.
Wow. Did you ever
And
do
so
a-
I knew my wish was granted. And I was in the hospital. My husband took me to the hospital and my heart rate was at 156 beats per minute. And they said I was lucky to survive.
Wow.
Wow.
And I was hospitalized for days,
How many days?
about 10.
Wow.
And I was in that communicative with the cosmos or Jehovah, where so sleeping for a good 3 full days.
That you stayed in
Wow.
contact with. Okay.
It was like a connection, like a contact where I was being uh I don't know. It was like the spirit didn't leave me.
Oh man.
It was like your brain was probably being cleansed.
Yeah, it was like a restart for me. And when I came back from that experience, it's on a new mission, and it was a spiritual mission. And it didn't matter what men said anymore.
Yay.
Ew. I'm getting goose
Okay.
pimples.
Yeah.
I knew the truth. Knew that when I would pass away and when I transition later in my life, I know what's going to happen.
You what?
I know what's going to happen. I know immediately you're taken care of. Immediately.
Isn't that a
So-
beautiful
I didn't
thought?
want to come back at all. Well, the first time though, I was giving birth and the doctor made an error with the epidural block and
Ah,
it went
that's
up
good with this.
instead of down. It went straight up and stopped my heart. And all of a sudden, I floated up in the top of the room, looking down, thinking, "You idiots! I came here to have a baby, and you killed me." But what she just described about like whooshing back into her body, that happened to me too.
It's
The,
amazing.
the other times I got to heaven and I could see my parents, and I was told I was being given a special gift of seeing and hearing that my parents were apologizing to me for raising me as a Jehovah's Witness,
Wow.
and that they were wrong, and for me to make sure I never went back. And I couldn't cross off. It was like a moat between me and them, so I couldn't keep crossing. And I didn't see Jesus or God or anything. I saw a light off to my right, but I had the peace that I and love, all this encompassing, amazing love and
Right.
acceptance. And it just like wrapped me up in its arms. And it was the most beautiful, amazing, wonderful experience. And I came back with a whole new set of ideas, but I was already kind of pretty much out of the witnesses because they had already kicked me out with meeting with me or anything. And then I found out 13 years later that was a rumor. I
Oh,
never was disfellowship.
wow.
But anyway, it was a beautiful experience. I mean, I know that it's just, and I know I can't save anybody else. I just wish I could get my family back. I'm not talking about my parents. I mean, my son and my granddaughters. Everybody's gone. My daughter's here, but she's so verbally abusive. It's very difficult to be with a person every day that you're in such a toxic relationship with. And by the weekend, she's ready to go home and not be here for the weekend. I am so ready for her to leave too at the end of the day.
Oh man.
Can't wait. Every day. I feel really good and I'm happy until she walks through the door.
Mm.
And it's like she brings this negative. I can feel it coming in the house. I can. Uh, it's really sad. I'm sorry, I'm moving my phone around.
Are you guys?
But
gonna move?
I feel
You were gonna move, right? She was gonna move, you were gonna move. Are you both gonna move, or what's happening?
I really don't know. They sold this park and they're not really going up on the rent much at all, if at all. They might not even go up on mine. When they found out I'm paying $35 more a month than anybody else, and they're grandfathering in us. But everybody else that moves in is gonna be a lot of money. And I don't think it's even reasonable to think about moving. I just don't like my home because I'm tearing it up more every day with this wheelchair. But I am getting fit. They did make my brace, and I'm going to get fitted Monday to where
Yay.
it'll help keep my
Good.
leg from messing up and tripping
Oh,
me.
that's good. That's
And
good.
they want me to start trying to walk again.
Yay. That's great, Debbie. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exciting, man.
that's exciting.
I would be focusing my attention on that
Yeah.
and living, not dying. I would focus on
There's
that.
one thing I know about you, Debbie. It seems like there's always a close call, but there's always a miracle. It seems like every time I talk to you, there's something that
I, kn-
happens and there's a
I
miracle.
know that. And I keep thinking, is this going to be the last one? Or did I already, have I used up all my miracles? And I'm thinking,
Like
wait
a
a minute,
cat
I've had
now?
way more miracles. I've had way more miracles than anybody I know. And I mean, even this year, I've nearly died twice from septicemia.
Yeah, that's right.
That usually kills a lot of
Oh,
people.
yeah. So I don't think you're gonna be going anywhere, Deb, then. I don't.
I think you're supposed to write a book.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to walk and write a book.
Oh, everybody says that. Everybody
Oh,
says for me to write a book.
There it is.
And
There it
oh
is.
my gosh.
There it is.
So you're not
I,
supposed to die
I'm,
yet.
I'm just gonna have to handwrite it somehow. It's
There you go.
difficult to type a long time. And my phone is not letting me do talk to text anymore.
Mm,
And my computer is so old, it never had that capability.
yeah.
And I can't hold it very long because it's too heavy. So
Well, go ahead and write a
got a great big screen, but it's little, but it's heavy. Huh?
You can always turn those handwritten notes to a ghostwriter, and they can, so long as you can read it.
That's what I was talking to Daniel about that the other day.
Yeah.
And he said, man, oh, Dan, you were going to send me your books y'all wrote.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We haven't got it
Yeah,
done. I
I'll
need to do
box 'em
somebody
up.
else too. Anyway.
Well, I want to get in touch with, or y'all get in touch with me because I don't know your schedule.
Okay.
I'm available most of the time. And I want to know about a ghostwriter, how you work
Okay.
through that and
Right.
everything.
That's gonna be cool to tell you about. That's exciting. I think you're gonna be surprised. All right, you guys, let's end this thing because we are
Yep.
way over time. All
And
right.
I gotta go.
All right. Thank you, Carrie.
It was
Carrie.
All right,
lovely.
guys.
Thank you for
Well,
coming
thank
on.
you
We
all.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
All
you.
of you guys. Thank you for making this a nice night.
Yep.
It was
Good night,
fun.
everybody.
Thanks.
Everybody.
Mwah.
Good night. Mwah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 I don't know how to turn this thing down.